Just to remind you, you're still under oath from this morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, or good afternoon, sir. I guess we're not in the afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you state your name and rank for the record?
I'm Police Officer Jose Manuel Hernandez.
And Officer Hernandez, what position or duty station do you hold in the department?
I'm an officer with the Office of Professional Responsibilities.
Okay, and that's commonly known as an OPR?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you involved in the investigation of the complaints that involving Sergeant Lucas Torres?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and were those the two IA matters, one of them that originated with a complaint by another officer, Guillermina Cavazos?
Yes.
Okay, and then there was a second, later OPR investigation involving a ticket change in which Sergeant Torres was implicated.
Yes.
That's the second matter.
Yes.
All right. And it's in our designations here, the notebook that there is in front of you at tab 2A has a copy of the first investigation, which is the one that ends, it's OPR 2014-35.
Yes.
Okay, and then the second one has a second designation, OPR 054.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what I would like to do is basically is to get kind of a brief description of, you know, what the parts of the file are and what you do as an investigator in this matter. First of all, when something becomes a numbered internal affairs investigation or OPR investigation, is that something that is authorized by the chief of police?
Yes, it is.
In this case, would Chief Victor Rodriguez authorize an investigation?
Correct.
Okay, and so in the absence of that authorization, I mean, you basically don't do anything.
Correct.
Okay. Would you, and now the material has been organized in parts. Could you please go through real quickly and just kind of identify what the different parts of the investigation packet is?
Okay, part one is a summary, which is a working product of the officer or employee that's involved in the event. Part two would be the civil service, the disciplinary suspension for 5 days that's taken over to the civil service director, and he stamps it and dates it.
Okay. Tab 3?
Part three is the personal complaint. That is what we present to the chief, and once he makes a decision, that's where he writes the decision. The next one is Captain Alcocer's, of course, IDC, Lieutenant Mario Garcia's IDC, Officer Guillermina's IDC dated March 18th. The next one would be, do you want me to go through each one?
Well, another way, and I will take you through some of those, but
Okay.
basically, under tab 3 is the packet of IDCs that are signed by the individual witnesses who have been determined that have some information or knowledge about the incident at issue. Is that correct?
Correct, and they're all presented to the chief at the end
Okay.
for his evaluation.
And then tab 4?
Tab 4 is the order to give statement to the person that's being investigated with an administrative investigation warning, which would be numbered on the bottom 44. His response and a set of questions that I usually prepare during the interview.
Okay.
Tab 5 is the contemplated disciplinary action letter that's given to the employee.
Okay, and
So
what does that mean, sir?
That's to let the employee aware that the chief is ready to meet with him.
Okay, and in this contemplated discipline, is the chief basically giving the officer a preview of where he is prior to actually making a final decision?
Correct.
Okay, and is it the practice in the department to have an actual face-to-face pre-disciplinary due process hearing or
Yes, it
meeting
is.
with the chief?
Yes.
Okay. And is that what is recorded at the back of the notebook here, which looks like a court reporter's record?
That is correct.
Okay, and I notice in this case, this one has 2 volumes, Volume 1, Volume 2.
It is probably because of the 2 separate cases that he met with the employee.
Okay, so there was one hearing as to the one case and then a separate hearing as to the second case.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then there's some exhibits as well that, that all come out of the investigative packet, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And then after the contemplated discipline, tab 6 is what?
It's a disciplinary history on the employee.
Okay, and is that the material that OPR gathers?
Correct.
Part of the file?
Correct.
Okay, and is that for informational purposes to the chief?
Yes, that's for just to, so the chief can know if he's got any previous disciplinary actions.
Okay, and so if we were to go through the different parts of OPR file 054, would they basically be assembled in the same fashion?
Correct.
Okay. I want to take you into a little more detail as to what you do. Now, this is the case which I'll call the Cavazos harassment claim. Did you work alongside with another officer in doing some of this work?
Yes, I did.
Okay. But in terms of the familiarity with the work product, you're familiar with all of it, is that right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Can you explain to the hearing examiner then, once the chief has authorized an investigation like this, what is the next step that you take or what you do?
The step that we take is usually that what we do is we organize a file and go over everything that we have, any IDCs, evidence that has been submitted with the packet that we receive. We then proceed, if we have any questions or think we can find some evidence such as video or audio or anything, recordings, any type of recordings, what we do is we go and start looking for recordings if there is anything that can assist in the investigation. If there's persons that we feel that have to be contacted, we contact any other persons. If not, we prepare just the packet, and at the end of it, we determine what violations, if any, have been violated, present basically a working order to the chief. The chief gives us the order for the employee so that the employee can answer to the allegations that are being made against him or her.
Do you have the benefit of having received the documents generated by, in this case, the captain, which were like part of his inquiry, initial inquiry?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Are you free to then follow up and get additional statements or additional interviews with those individuals?
Correct. Once the chief gives the order to proceed to investigate, what we do is we proceed to investigate the matter. If we feel that we have to recontact certain witnesses or contact other potential witnesses, we contact them. If the employee, even after the employee, if he brings up and says that there's other persons that he might want us to contact, we try to contact those other persons, and so that they can be brought up to the attention of the chief through the end product.
Okay. Now, in this particular case, did you, in the first one, the harassment claim, did you basically start with some looking into the allegations by Officer Cavazos?
Correct, I did.
Okay. And did you at some point, do follow-up interviews with her or get additional information from her?
Yes, I did. I had two IDCs from her, and they were explained by Captain Alcocer's IDC. However, I wanted to contact Ms. Cavazos and get a general idea of what her actual complaint was, because there were several questions that I had as to the first IDC and the second IDC. So she was brought in, interviewed, and I obtained an affidavit from her. I believe it was May 1st.
Did she give an additional affidavit then when the case had already become an OPR case?
Yes, I think I was given the case on April 15th, and I began the investigation after I got it, and I think it was not until May 1st that I obtained an affidavit from her to clarify.
Was there, and so let's identify that document, by the way. If you turn to tab 2A and then tab 3 behind that.
Everything, it would be after page 18 on the bottom.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, please use the page numbers at the bottom.
Yes, sir. Page 18, there is an IDC from Lieutenant Mario Antonio Garcia, but that was not obtained until later on in his findings of sick leave abuse by Officer Guillermina. Then there was, on page 22, it's Officer Guillermina Cavazos dated March 18th. Her initial complaint.
Right.
And then a second IDC in which it was basically a clarification by her of the complaint dated March 21st, 2014.
I'm showing that at page 25 and 26.
Correct, page 25.
And 27.
All the way through 27. And then the affidavit that I took from her is on page 28.
Okay, and so does this constitute all of the statements by her?
Correct.
Okay, and did you also had interviewed her at one point?
Correct. I interviewed her in order to obtain this affidavit from her.
Okay. During the course of looking into her allegations, insofar as they involve Lieutenant Zellers, were you able to determine whether there had been whether she had personal knowledge or had any direct conduct or witnessed any direct behavior by Zellers towards her directly?
No, she had no direct knowledge of anything. She said that she had been in the front desk almost 3 years ago, that her contact with him was, if anything, almost 3 years ago from what I recall.
So in her allegations against Zellers, what was she relying on in the context of her bringing this forward, as far as what she was relying on to support her belief that Zellers was engaged in certain kinds of behavior that she did not like?
It was brought up to her attention by Sergeant Javier Coronado, and that's there was an IDC from him also on page 29.
And who is Coronado?
That is another supervisor from the McAllen Police Department. From my understanding, they had a relationship.
Okay, so her initial source of information about Zellers, did you determine that that was coming from Sergeant Coronado?
Correct.
Okay, and that Sergeant Coronado had said whatever to her reference Zellers or the issues that she complained about?
Correct.
Okay. And did you follow that chain up the link? Did you follow
Correct.
that out?
Correct. I started following the trail of persons involved in all of this.
Okay. So did you interview or follow up with Coronado again?
Correct. I also did a separate investigation on Sergeant Coronado in reference to the possible allegations of misconduct on his part due to the sensitivity of what her complaint was.
Okay. Did the chief authorize a separate OPR case involving other people arising out of the complaints originated by Officer Cavazos?
Yes.
Okay. Was Coronado one of those?
Yes.
Okay. Did that result in any affirmative findings towards Coronado of misconduct?
I don't recall about the exact findings, but I don't think there was anything against Coronado.
Let me ask it this way. Did it result in any disciplinary action with Coronado?
No, I don't believe it did any kind of disciplinary action.
Okay. Did you then follow up from Coronado the source of the allegations or rumors about what Zellers was allegedly saying or not saying?
Yes, I talked to Coronado, and Coronado alleged that he was told given this information by Sergeant Lucas Torres.
Okay. Did you then follow up with Lucas Torres?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and did he give a statement in the matter?
Yes, he did.
Okay, can you identify that, please?
An order was given to him, that's on page 39.
39 of tab,
Of the tab 2A.
2A, page 39,
It's four, tab four.
tab 4, page 39?
Tab 4, page 39.
Okay,
That's the order.
An order was given to him, administrative investigation warning was also issued to him, and then he responded. From what I recall, it was postponed twice. The actual order was for May 9th, but from what I recall, his attorney asked for it to be moved to May 12th. But then, I think, from what I recall, Lucas Torres called in sick on May 12th and left a message advising that his daughter, I believe it was his daughter who was sick, and that he was not going to be able to attend on the 12th. So we moved it up to the dates when he did.
well, subject to some rescheduling due to things that aren't that critical for our purposes. I mean, he eventually did comply with this order to give the statement.
Correct.
Okay, and as a consequence of that, what did you find or determine?
He advised that he did tell Sergeant Coronado about the supposed rumor. That was the basics of what the question was.
During the course of your investigation with Sergeant Torres, did you evaluate whether he had personal knowledge of misconduct or behavior by Zellers?
Yes, he says that he had heard all this stuff almost 2 years ago.
Okay, but had he heard it directly from Zellers himself?
Yes, that's what he claimed. He's claimed that he heard the information that he provided Coronado 2 years prior.
Okay. Did you determine whether he indicated that he had heard it from other sources as well?
No.
So Sergeant Torres is at this point saying, I have direct personal knowledge of Zellers saying and doing these things.
Correct.
Okay. And did you determine some kind of time frame of when this alleged behavior had occurred?
Yes, based on his statement and based on when he was with Zellers, and I believe he put 2 years ago, and it based on what we found on when he was assigned to Lieutenant Zellers, it would have been about 2 years.
Was it Sergeant Torres's contention that, by the way, did he admit that he had told Coronado or made comments to Coronado about Zellers?
Correct, about Zellers and Officer Guillermina Cavazos.
Okay, so when Officer Cavazos is telling, Internal Affairs, I heard these things from
Sergeant Javier Coronado.
From Coronado, and Coronado saying, I got it from Torres. Torres is corroborating to you, yes, I told those things to Coronado.
Correct.
Okay. And, but Cavazos is not hearing any of this directly about Zellers herself.
No.
Okay. And then Torres is saying, I have personal knowledge of this kind of behavior by Zellers.
Correct.
Okay. Did you determine there that the behavior, or the time frame of it was, some time ago, 2 years ago?
Yes.
Okay. Did Sergeant Torres leave you with the impression that he then was aware of potential misconduct by Zellers at an earlier point in time?
Correct. He was advising that he was actually a witness. Although he had received an order, he kept advising that he was a witness to the misconduct by Zellers.
Okay. Now, are you familiar with, in a civil service department such as the city of McAllen, are you familiar with the administrative limitations period on administrative misconduct?
Yes, I am.
And what is that?
180 days.
Okay, 180 days is roughly 6 months?
Correct.
Okay, so when you as an investigator are trying to pin down an allegation of misconduct, are you keeping in mind the fact that misconduct that is older than 180 days may be beyond the scope of what a chief can do anything about?
Correct.
Okay, is that something that you would report to the chief or let him know at the time frame?
Yes, it would be on that personal complaint form that we generate. It would state the date that it occurred and 180 dates from the...
Okay. So in this case, Sergeant Torres is telling you, I have personal knowledge of misconduct by Zellers that, if true, would be actionable, potentially actionable by the chief as misconduct in the department.
That was his claim, yes.
Okay. And if that misconduct is correct, if it did happen, he's telling you that it's also well beyond the 180-day period that within which a department head in a civil service department can act.
Correct.
Okay. Nevertheless, your duty is to just report that to the chief, and what the chief can or can't do is separate from what you can do. Is that correct?
Correct. I still continue the investigation on each individual person. I said whatever led to each particular case, but still the consideration of the 180 days was documented and would be put on, like I said, on the personal complaint and issued, if anything.
Okay. Is it also the case in the department, and as OPR, I mean, what OPR does is, this is my term, but tell me if you think is OPR basically works for the chief, and the chief, it helps the chief police the police.
Correct.
Okay, and the policing that happens is having to do with the civil service rules, regulations, and policies having to do with how officers are to conduct their affairs.
Correct.
All right. Now, in this case, if an officer in the department is aware of misconduct by another officer, is there a duty to report that?
Yes.
Is there a duty to report that up the chain of command?
Yes.
Okay. And did you determine whether Sergeant Torres reported the misconduct that he says he witnessed by Zellers? Did you determine whether he reported it up a chain of command?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and did he do it?
No, he did not.
And so is he, on the one hand, is saying, I know that Zellers is engaged in professional misconduct, but I didn't report it up the chain of command?
Correct.
All right. He did, however, report it to another sergeant.
Yes, he did.
Okay, to Sergeant
Javier
Coronado.
Coronado, yes.
Okay. And Coronado, did you determine whether Sergeant Torres knew that Coronado had a personal relationship with Officer Cavazos?
Yes, he did.
Okay, were there other, when you interviewed Officer Cavazos, was her concern, did it go beyond Lieutenant Zellers in that she felt that there were rumors spreading about her in the department generally?
Correct.
Okay. And so as part of the investigative process, were other people made the targets of an investigation?
Yes, there were.
Okay. How many total investigations were conducted arising out of her rumors complaint?
I believe there were 5.
Were you involved in the due process hearing, or is that something the chief handles on his own?
No, I am present. I just do not, I just present the findings, the data that's collected to the chief,
Okay.
and I am just present as an
Okay.
observer, and that's it.
So would it be fair to say that the document that you present there would be this one that's at tab 1, for example, where it says summary?
Correct.
Okay. Now, this is a document, it's my understanding that this is a document that's sort of a working document as you all are working through the investigation, you are
It's continuously.
creating it and updating it and sort of pulling it together, but that once your work is done, it's all captured in this summary.
Correct.
Okay, and this is presented to the chief.
As well, yes.
Okay, and what you do for the chief is then you kind of summarize the content of what's in all this material behind it.
Correct.
Okay. But the chief has access to the documents and content himself.
Yes.
All right. Have you worked with the chief long enough to know that whether he in fact does his own review of the paperwork?
Yes, he does.
Okay. So have you had it where he may have follow-up questions for you about specific things, or where he looks at things in the content of statements and asks follow-up questions?
Not too many times, but sometimes there'll be a question, but usually when the book is turned over to the chief goes over the book and is aware what the book has.
In this case, then, were the contents of the allegations and claims then presented to the officer in the due process hearing?
Yes, they are.
All right. Now, let me direct your attention, turn to that summary. Let's go to the first one. By the way, before I go there, if I were to take you through this series of questions on the second case, the ticket case, the 2C, I mean, we would essentially have the same procedure, correct?
Correct. The same procedure happens, yes.
Okay, and so whatever documentation you got, I mean, that happened in a similar way in that case, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. In that case, in the ticket case, did you determine that in fact, a former employee, now a citizen named Erica Garcia, had received a ticket by an officer, Domingo Reyes?
Correct.
And had that individual then made contact with Sergeant Torres?
Yes.
Okay. And had Sergeant Torres, at the time she made contact with Sergeant Torres, was Sergeant Torres off duty?
Yes, he was.
Did Sergeant Torres then take it upon himself to communicate with dispatch and have them find the officer that issued the ticket and have him call him back?
Correct. He had communications, contact Officer Reyes and call him back.
Okay. And did Officer Reyes call him back?
Correct.
Okay. And so is that standard procedure in McAllen, that if a citizen calls a friend in the department, that officer can then intervene or follow up with the officer issuing the ticket?
No, it is not.
Okay. If a citizen has a complaint about a ticket and about an officer, what would be the appropriate procedure?
To contact the police department and contact a supervisor if necessary, or even contact that same officer to clarify what the citation or warning is.
Okay. Is there any role in the department where an off-duty officer who has nothing to do with the issuance of a citation to get involved in an officer on the street's decision to issue or not issue a ticket?
No, there is not.
Let me direct your attention back to the summary at the first case. And just have you go to the second page, which is space stamp number 3. In which it's dated there 4/15, and in there, OPR kind of has a set of bullet points in here. Is this based on the follow-up interview with Cavazos?
The interview and the eventual statement that was obtained from her, yes.
Okay. So if we were to go to her statement, the final statement that she did, and kind of compare it against, this is just sort of drawn from that statement, is it?
Correct.
Okay. And were you able to determine, based on information that she was able to provide, that Well, by the way, was Lieutenant Zellers given an opportunity to respond to these particular complaints?
Correct. I still continued an investigation on the allegations.
And what was his
and
position about the complaints?
That there had never been any type of relationship between him and Officer Guillermina, and that he had never said anything. He would never
denied the allegations?
Correct. He denied completely the allegations being made against him.
When you followed up with her about the complaints and kind of evaluated in terms of what she knew directly versus what she was hearing second and third hand, okay, did she have any information directly that would support a claim against Zellers?
No, she didn't. Everything was either second or third hand.
You also, in this document, kind of outlined the procedural steps that were taken in here in terms of when people are ordered to give statements and what, but these summaries that you make in here, these are all sourced to specific documents or statements, are they not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And on the last page of that summary, at Bait stamp page 4, you indicate that on September 2nd, there was a meeting with the chief, and is that the due process meeting?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and this is the one in which Sergeant Torres has two counsel present, a Mr. Alvarez as well as a counsel, Mr. Willis, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then, again, you summarize there the content of that meeting, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And then the final entry in this report is the disciplinary letter issued by the chief, correct?
Correct.
All right. And as far as that letter is concerned, the chief at that point is basically acting on his own. He's making the final call on all of this.
Yes.
If I were to take you through the summary that you did for the other case, we go to 2B, we would have the same approach to that file. Is that right?
Yes, it would.
This is the first piece, and then we use that in the second piece of the continuation. It's all one here. I know, because we recessed one day, then we came back a week later. Okay.
Yeah, it's my understanding that on the due process hearing, where the court reporter was present, that there was a recess of the hearing. The first part on the second was done as to the first case, and there was a recess, and then we came back a week later and did the second part.
I believe so. I don't recall, but I...
Same time, but then we recessed to consider it a week later.
Okay.
So just a recess.
The second part was to consider the penalty?
Correct. It was for that, what discipline, if any discipline was going to be taken.
Okay, so there was about a 1 week period there where there was still a pending.
Yes, from what I recall, it was September 2nd and then September 9th were the...
Okay, yeah. The record speaks to that, so we'll, okay, I'll pass the witness.
Okay.
Detective Hernandez, you and I have met before, have we not?
Yes, sir.
Several times. We've discussed several cases in the past, right?
Yes, sir.
Earlier, you testified that you investigated a rumor, right?
Yes, it was a rumor.
What was the rumor that you were investigating?
Officer Guillermina Cavazos had filed a complaint that that she had heard from her then boyfriend, Sergeant Javier Coronado, that she had been involved in some relationship with Lieutenant Zellers, and that Lieutenant Zellers was saying things about that relationship with her.
Okay. So the allegation that you investigated was whether or not Lieutenant Zellers had told other people that he was in a previous relationship with Guillermina Cavazos, and that it had ended, I guess.
Correct.
All right. Now, one of the people described by her to be a witness to that alleged rumor spreading was Lucas Torres, right?
In her statement, it was that the information was given to her by Sergeant Javier Coronado, and that Coronado was told by Lucas Torres.
Okay, so that would make Lucas Torres a witness to her allegation, right?
I wouldn't refer to him as a witness, and she didn't refer to him as a witness.
How about this? Would Lucas Torres be a person with knowledge of relevant facts about the investigation of this rumor that you're looking into?
From her statement, she was advising that the information that she was given by Coronado had originally come from Lucas Torres.
Okay, so Lucas Torres would be one of the people that you would ask questions to about the veracity or the truth of that allegation.
Correct.
And another of the people that you would have asked questions to would have been Lieutenant Zellers, right?
Correct.
And you did, right?
Correct.
And one of the other people that you would have asked questions to was David Coronado, right?
Javier Coronado.
I'm sorry, David Cavazos.
Yes, David Cavazos.
Okay. Now, why would you ask questions to Sergeant David Cavazos?
Because during the investigation, I believe it was Guillermina Cavazos and Sergeant Lucas Torres brought his name up as to possible witness to maybe misconduct by Lieutenant Zellers.
Okay. Now, isn't it true that in both of Guillermina's IDCs, the one dated March the 18th and March the 21st, she said that David Cavazos had told her that Lieutenant Zellers had told him about his relationship with Guillermina?
Correct.
Okay. So at this point then, you have two people telling you that Lieutenant Zellers, you have two people who are alleged to have heard Lieutenant Zellers say that he was in a previous relationship with Guillermina.
That is her statement.
Right. But there are two people, right? David Cavazos and Lucas Torres both say, I'm sorry, David Cavazos and Lucas Torres both told somebody that
Correct.
Lieutenant Zellers had told them.
But based on her statement, that what her event had occurred almost 2 years ago with David Cavazos.
But at least at this point then.
Right, and I still that's why I contacted David Cavazos as well.
Now, when you began your investigation on what day?
I believe it was April 15th, I received the order, and from then on, that's when I started my investigation.
All right.
But you need to realize that it's not just one case that I get. There were probably other cases that I had.
Sure.
And in this particular case, there ended up being 5 separate cases from one complaint.
All right. And you interviewed Guillermina Cavazos?
Yes, to clarify some of the questions that I had.
All right. Prior to your interview of Guillermina Cavazos, you had an IDC from, you had both of Guillermina Cavazos' IDCs, right?
Correct.
You had Lieutenant Zeller's IDC?
I think it was an initial IDC that he submitted to his supervisor. I believe that was an initial IDC from.
Is there more than one IDC from Lieutenant Zellers regarding this case?
I'm not too sure. I would have to look at the IDCs, but I know I received an IDC from him when he was ordered to respond to the possible allegations of misconduct.
And that was an order given by Captain Alcocer?
That's correct. That's an order given to him by his supervisor. So there was an initial IDC by him that he, through his chain of command.
Was there a subsequent IDC authored by Lieutenant Zellers involving your investigation of this rumors case?
That was in his case, yes.
Okay.
Once he was given an order, he submitted his response to that order.
All right.
And I believe it's in the IDC format. I'm not too sure, but
Okay.
I think.
And did you deliver that? When do you think that subsequent IDC from Lieutenant Zellers was created?
You're talking about once the investigation started?
Yes.
It had to be after April 15th when I was given the order.
Did you give that over to Mr. Navarro's office? Did you give that document over, that subsequent IDC by Lieutenant Zellers to Mr. Navarro's office?
Let me lie.
No, I do not.
He did not give that to me because it's part of a separate file in which there was no finding, and it's also G-file material. So if we have to have a conversation about that and where we go with that, I think that we should do that off record, since we're talking about other people's privileged documents. We're talking about a departmental privileged document, so.
But if it's a witness statement that has bearing on this case, then it should have been produced.
It is a record that pertains to another file where there was no discipline issued arising out of this particular complaint.
Detective Hernandez says that he relied on it in formulating part of his investigation, and this would be something that should be subject to cross-examination and at least inspected.
I see you shaking your head. What's your,
No, I already had an initial IDC from the lieutenant. I didn't rely on anything. I had like I said, I treated each investigation separate and individually. I did not rely on whatever is on Lieutenant Zeller's case for Sergeant Lucas Torres' case or for Officer Flores. If anything went anywhere, those documents would be added to that particular case.
My question is whether or not Lieutenant Zellers authored an IDC that went to the merits of this rumors case.
When he was given an order, he responded to the order that he was given as to the investigation that was being conducted against him.
And did it address whether or not he had told other people within the department that he had a previous relationship with Guillermina Cavazos?
That was also in his initial IDC, where he completely denied.
Was it in the subsequent IDC?
I would have to look at the subsequent IDC, but my understanding is he did the same thing, denied that he was involved in any kind of relationship, and denied the allegations that were being made against him.
In the subsequent IDC, did he either address or confirm or deny that he had said that he was in a relationship to another member of the department?
No, he did not.
When was your first interview with Guillermina Cavazos?
It was probably towards the end of April.
How many interviews did you have with Guillermina Cavazos?
Just one interview.
How many meetings did you have with Guillermina Cavazos regarding the investigation into misconduct by Lucas Torres?
I think I only had one meeting with her.
You had one meeting only?
From what I remember, it was only one meeting with her.
How long did that meeting last?
I'm sorry?
How long did that meeting last?
I do not know.
Was that meeting recorded?
I believe we had a recording of it.
Did you turn that recording over to Mr. Navarro's office?
Yes, I did.
At this point, then I'll request that recording be turned over for inclusion into the record.
Can we confer about that? Because
Sure.
again, it's
It was,
technically part of a different file, so we need to talk about how we're going to handle that in terms
Okay,
of
so
the
you're not
confidentiality.
compliant.
I have it, and if you want it,
you two guys want to
But
put your
it's,
heads
uh,
together, see if you can decide how you're going to do it?
yeah, it's a recording, it's not very audible. It's hard to listen, it's hard to hear in it, but, I mean, he wants a copy of it, I'm happy to give him a copy of it, but if we need it back.
I do want a copy of it. I'd like to at least inspect it. And then if I determine that there's evidence that's relevant to this proceeding, I'd like to have that included into the record.
Well, how do you propose to do that?
Well, I do believe that even at the close of this hearing, whether or not it finishes at all, the record is not closed until 30 days after this portion of it. I'd keep the record open, allowing me an opportunity to at least inspect the audio recording, determine whether or not it is something that's relevant to this. If necessary, have it transcribed and submitted to you for inspection and inclusion into the record.
Do you have any problems with that?
I think I don't have any problems with it substantively. I think that I have a copy, I'm happy, I don't want it out there floating around. If he has something that we can maybe take a break and have him make an arrangement to see if he can listen to it. I tried listening to it, it's very
How
difficult.
long is it anyway?
It probably, I mean, I couldn't tell because the audio was so bad on it, but it's my understanding that she did her affidavit, another affidavit after that interview, based on that interview. So that's in the record.
Well, my question was, how long is that recording that
It
seems to be?
it was probably more than an hour, because I had to ask her several questions, go through each complaint, paragraph by paragraph, understand what she was actually complaining about. And it was two different complaints, and it was in order for me to be able, so it's probably more than an hour long. And in that particular event, I had generated an investigation on the initial complaint against Lieutenant Zellers. And so what I did is created the file was for Lieutenant Zellers and her complaint against Lieutenant Zellers. And that's how I was going over each portion of of what her complaint actually was, and generated the affidavit at the end of it.
I don't have a player on my computer. I don't know if you have a player on your computer.
I do.
Okay, so I
If
have
that's
a
the
copy
case.
of it here. If he wants to, I tried listening to it.
Okay, tell you what, give them the disc, let them listen to it, and then we'll come back.
Well, I mean, I could keep going, and then I'll listen to the...
On a break,
On a
or-
break. I mean,
That's fine.
if that's okay with the...
I said, if you want that record, we'll give it to you now, and you can go
Okay.
on out and listen to it.
Well, that's fine. I'll certainly do that.
Okay.
So we'll just take a little break then. I'm not sure where you go to listen to it.
I have
Oh, you got it.